Now, when it comes to lame old cupcake Karen Drake, well, now, if you're ready to see how Lawbury responded to all the hate he has gotten for his lawsuit antics at his latest show, and while at the same time, we just found out how bad his record deal really is, and you will never respect him the same when you see it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And now, really, as we are seeing Drake just crumble as both an artist because of these lawsuit antics, and well, as a result of that, we now see how bad of a deal he is in. Make sure to leave that like, because all of rap is going to need to see how bad of a place Cupcake Karen is in. And now, first off, before we get into how Drake just got the biggest L handed to him by the very head of his label, as we have all found out how bad his splits really are, well, now, after a week where Lawbury has turned heads and disappointed literally everybody, well, he has seemingly responded to all the hate he is getting for everything he just added to his lawsuit and everything he wants to see from Kendrick Lamar, which all went down in his show in Cologne, Germany. And within this now, aside from the typical rants and karaoke that the Iceman turned Cupcake Man was doing, well, in the midst of all of this, Drake sent out another message, which is much more jarring, and is just showing him respond to the hate in the worst way. As now, after Drake already made his little "I know what they did last summer" jacket, and he was alluding to this new wave of annoyances that he wanted to give Kendrick seemingly right before he did it, he's seemingly teasing something else now and is alluding to something that's only going to make him a bigger disgrace at this point, because with the cupcake now, he used one of his favorite ways to possibly send a message in this point of his career, which is by bedazzling jacket. And now with the cupcake Super Karen Bedazzler Man, he must have been learning some stranger things to learn how to make this arts and crafts project, as just with this weird graphic, I mean, this is already weird, but it gets worse when you read the text, which says, "You have no idea how furious the Canadians are, and without them, what friends do we have left?" And when you just read this and see the message which Drake is trying to send, which I guess is him trying to diss all of the people in America and all of the US rappers who he does not like and who he's mad at, I mean, really, just looking at this, there is something so wrong with this walking cupcake that I almost don't even know what to say, because seriously, for Cupcake to try and act like he is this big bad Canadian who is gonna get revenge on all the American rappers and Kendrick Lamar especially for what they have done, I mean, just stop, because not even the people you were trying to rep in the Canadians have agreed with you when literally 50,000 of them went to the Rogers Center for bigger shows than you have ever done there, and literally chanted for an encore after Not Like Us, which is of course what you're crying about in the first place. And really just with this, you can see how Karen is still trying to act like he has this rabbit that he's gonna pull out of a hat, and he has this grand plan that he has thought through, but of course we know that this is a sheer and utter lie, and there is nothing here other than gimmicks and wannabe quests for DNA tests. And now, speaking of lying, when it comes to what else is going on for Lawbury, things could not have gotten possibly worse, as now he has also gotten exposed so bad by his own record label, because right before this, as we are at a point where from Cupcake to all of the label parties involved, responses are flying out there and we are finding out so much. Well, now within this, out of everything that has been said and received, by far the most important response that we have gotten is from none other than the head of Universal Music Group himself in Lucian Grange. And now with what he just said, well, he has put Drake in his place in so many different ways, and now after hearing the way that other rappers have talked about Drake and specifically his record deal and his inner workings in the industry for quite a while, well, now with the man who knows all of this speaking on this situation and telling Drake, his team, and us every single thing that we need to know seemingly, well, we are really finding out so much, which first off for Universal Music Group, well, with this entire letter, what it is really saying is pretty clear, which is that first off, Lucian had no idea that Not Like Us was dropping and heard it in real time like the rest of us did, as it was an Interscope Records project, which he did not need to be a part of in terms of it to get cleared and to come out. And now first off with this, well, now, while there are some conversations that need to be had on how the blame may be trying to get shifted onto Interscope, and that may cause another full-on Karen moment from Lawbury very soon, let's stay on track here and look at what is most important, which is the fact that within the statement that the head and the very person who has helped Drake more than anybody else has in his entire career has put out, he explained and said that this was a rap beef and they let the two MCs and labels that work under them for Drake and Kendrick just move the way that they wanted to in this musical back and forth. And now where this gets interesting and where you start to see Karen just get the reality check from the manager that he has needed and that he's been asking for is ultimately where we see Lucien explain that with this beef, he would never have anything to do with it and would have never skewed it the way that Karen is trying to say, because over everything else, this is where it gets big. And if you're a Drake stan, this is what the guy said, and he's not making this up, so just brace yourselves. But despite everything that Karen has been saying, he is the one who owns majority of the Drake catalog, which let's just read the direct quote so we get it straight. Aubrey Drake Graham claims that I was behind a scheme to devalue his brand through the release and promotion of the Kendrick Lamar recording Not Like Us. And I love this part, an allegation that makes no sense due to the fact that the company that I run, Universal Music Group, has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in Drake, including long-standing and critical financial support for his recording career, the purchase and ownership of the bulk of his recording catalog, and the purchase of music publishing rights. And now really, for the Drake stans who for some reason are watching me, calm down, because with this is the most proof we will ever get and really need probably about the truth of Drake's deal, which of course he has kept referring to in so many different songs for a few years at this point, with this whole number of 400 million and everything around that. And right here, well listen, while Karen has been trying to act like he got the LeBron James Supermax and then also got ownership of the Lakers for it, that's not how this works, and that's definitely not how they treated lame old Cupcake, as we have finally found out everything we need to know. And the rest of what was said explains things further, which pretty much, to make things very clear, what this is all saying and what we now know is that Drake did not get this artist-friendly deal that he kept trying to act like he had, while at the same time saying that every other artist was in this terrible situation, which of course is what Drake made an entire diss track towards Kendrick saying in Push-Ups. And so now with this, what we have found out is that Drake may have actually gotten that amount from the label, and very well he probably did, but it came at a cost, and really it came at a loss for Lawbray, because for most artists he is in a nightmare situation, as he owns next to nothing of his catalog and work, as based on what is being said here and the way the interest in Drake is being referred to. Well listen, it looks like the label could own up to 90% of Drake's entire musical discography, which just wow. I mean, Kendrick's lines have never sounded better, and for Drake, Push-Ups really now may be aging worse than any other diss track, which of course is saying a lot, because really when you look into this, there is no good spin on this, and for the way Drake has talked, with now the actual head of the label coming out and telling us the truth, this man can never try to make this all a flex again. And now, making things even worse, what this entire deal really includes is most likely a 360 deal, which means that pretty much anything Drake ever possibly does, no matter what it is, if it's slightly related to music, the label gets a cut of that. And now the reason why I and some other people think this right now is if you remember when Drake was ranting in some weird messages that were showing that he's into some stranger things in terms of the people he was talking to, well, he was ranting and seemingly venting about the fact that his label keeps making him tour. And if the label is making Drake do a tour and did all of the shows that we saw during the It's a Blur era, well, again, they would only do that if they had the incentive of the 360 deal, which is putting together a lot. And now with everything we know, what we have found out is that Drake really gave up everything his art stood for to be a part of this machine, and he does not have any of the agency that he has tried to convince us that he does have over the rights of his music, which I just can't believe that we now know this, because once again, this is a truth that genuinely is reality breaking for the entire way that Drake has rapped for almost the last decade at this point, and the perception he has had in the industry. And honestly, just like we saw with TaylorMade being used against him, we are also seeing how powerful words really are, because after Drake put all of these things on Kendrick Lamar on Push-Ups and really had no basis for it seemingly, that is a song now that makes way more sense about you rather than any other artist. And with this, Drake has just messed up so bad, and really when we even compare this to other rappers who have been on this level and who have been at the top of the industry in terms of what the labels want, Well, seemingly with the deal that Drake has made, it's very similar to what the guy who made Graduation signed multiple times with the very same label while he was in the different primes of his career. And to compare this to another giant, for Jay-Z, what he did to get away from this and this concept altogether and protect his art was purchase his music back and retain all of the ownership of it, which clearly is something that Drake does not care about. And now when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, who I think in a lot of ways is probably the most direct and best comparison considering they are from the same era and class pretty much. Well, now with the deal that he has with Interscope and UMG, we know that it's a licensing deal, which is not the longest term of deals, so Kendrick will be a free agent in due time, and he's not in anything for the longest period possible, which Drake and a lot of other artists just get stuck in. And beyond that, Kendrick owns all of the music he has released since the beef, which now when it comes to GNX, this is why the album is so valuable to him, and even why doing all the records that he did from it at the Super Bowl is the flex that it is, because with all of those songs and also Not Like Us and Euphoria, Kendrick is reaping the rewards of a high-level A1 blockbuster album in one of the most artist-friendly deals you can be in, which is really something that in terms of these major musical records just never happens. And now when we see the way that Drake's deal is stacked up compared to Kendrick's, and we see the statements that the label has released about the Cupcake Karen, I mean, to compare these two and to look at the reality, everything is once again just getting confusing and perplexing from the very thought process of why Drake has even done any of this, because once again, well, as we now all know for fact that Drake's catalog is one of UMG's biggest assets and they have so much to gain from his success, and at the same time they are receiving less of Kendrick's success than they ever have. How is Drake still whining and acting like there was this plot with the label that was planned to just ruin him and boost Kendrick Lamar? Because there's literally no logical reason that this would ever happen, and for Cupcake Karen to just actually see and understand now that from the head of the label himself, and now we can all see this publicly, we now know the secrets you have tried to hide, which is pretty much showing that Drake has been protected by the label for so much of his career. And well, the only reason you have thought you're fail-proof is because of how much they invested in you. Well, really now, when we see where Drake is at, and again, Drake knew the reality of the situation that we have all been told already, because this has been the only thing holding him up. I mean, to just go against the machine that literally made him even believe that he could try to do anything that we have seen, whether it was go against Kendrick Lamar the way he did in the beef or make the demands that we have seen as a whole. Well, this is just pathetic, and as Drake is sitting here owning less than 5% of his catalog possibly, because between the label and then Wayne and Birdman, there is just so many people taken out of this thing. Well, ultimately now, not just can Drake never talk and sit at the same table as the Jays, Nas's, Kendricks, and even Coles now have reached in terms of just getting ownership and agency over their work, but we are also seeing now why Cupcake is doing what he is more and more in this moment, which is not for any factual or logical reason, but it was all just a temper tantrum and overreaction to losing the beef and seeing the label that he became a puppet for just not do every single thing to censor anything that was against him, because that's what he was used to. And so really now, as we have found out that Drake is not just rap's first ever Cupcake Karen who was doing the most just because they got their feelings hurt, but after everything he said, he is literally one of the biggest sellouts in the history of hip-hop. Well, I don't even know how I can say this, but really, by knowing how bad all of this is to the extent that we do now, well, I don't know how, but Drake has turned out to be even more pathetic than ever. And so now with all this said, let me know. What do you think about Cupcake Karen's record deal and what this says about him? And does this make everything make a little more sense in terms of just the position he has put himself in? No, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all this. And now if you made it to this point in the video, you know what to do. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And now if you want to see how before this, Drake just messed up bad, as due to what he has said in Tailor-Made Freestyle and the precedents that he has set, well, now, based on what he has said forward, well, Drake's entire case is in trouble, and it looks like he is going to lose everything now? Check out the suggested video.